Hello, hello, hello. It is so good to be back. It's been quite a week. I live in Brisbane and we have had Cyclone Alfred visiting. And it's been, gosh, an up and down bit of an expedition. Thursday and Friday, we all had to prepare. And myself personally, we had no power for a couple of days, but what I want to talk into today is fear. It was really interesting. I'm an empath and I energetically feel. And it's as much as I didn't have a lot of contact with people for a few days, as we started to come out after Alfred had come to land and the rain started to get a bit less, I was really able to feel the fear. I remember lining up for a coffee a few days ago because my office here had no power. I was down in the library and just watching, like there was a woman in front of me, just the anxiety as she was grabbing her coffee, her hand shaking, the man beside me and the rocking of his leg as he's waiting. Just the fear was everywhere. And I remember feeling it at this level when COVID was around. So this fear is, the fight and flight response. It's that trauma response in the body. And I suppose my question today is, are you living with fear? Now, how do you know if you're living with fear? Well, firstly, you often have a lot of negative thoughts, you overthink, you can be anxious, you can worry, and in your body can be quite achy. You may not even inhabit your body in that you're not actually aware of what you're feeling. So whether you are, angry, you will notice anger. Anger is when we come from fear. Anger is one of the stronger emotions, but under anger there is always a lot of ingredients. I work in pictures, so imagine a fruit cake, and the icing on the fruit cake is the anger. And inside the fruit cake, so the almonds, the cherries, the sultanas, all of the ingredients inside the fruit cake is the shame, the regret, the guilt, the sadness, the loss, all of those other ingredients that make up the cake. So if you're living with fear, it's a really tiring way to live because it affects your energy, your vibration. So we all have an energy life force inside of us. And when we live in fear, it's a heavy, hard way to live because I've lived decades that way. So I know what that feels like. It's heavy, it's exhausting, you push, you try harder, you do more. And when you get to a point, often it's a crisis, or when you get to a point where you are just so fatigued and exhausted or sad, you then will reach out, hopefully, to someone to get some support, to begin looking at why you live this way. We're not taught any of this stuff. We're not taught how to actually process, how to be with what is here. And so if you're listening to this and it's speaking to you and you want to be able to move the fear and you want to get away from that sort of fear mindset and that reaction, the fight, flight, freeze response, well, what is a different way of living? And that's what I want to talk into you now. So it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of thriving. It's not from pushing. It's coming from a place that's very purpose-led. It's a place where you feel passion. Have you noticed, like I can feel it in my body now that I'm talking into this, it's much quieter, it's easier. And when you come from this place, it's a much more peaceful way to live. You inhabit your body. So when you come from fear-led, you don't want to inhabit your body because you don't want to drop into all of those feelings. But the key is there is no way around it. You've actually got to go through it. And when we are living from fear, it's always trauma. It's unprocessed events that have happened in your life that you haven't processed. And a lot of this goes way back to when you're younger. We're a bit like a Coke bottle. We just keep putting it in. Now, I talked about the fruitcake and the anger. Well, if you keep putting it in the Coke bottle, all of the events that have happened because you haven't allowed yourself to feel, eventually that lid is getting tighter and tighter and tighter because it's building. And depending how long you've been on this planet, the Coke bottle, it fills and fills and fills. And eventually that lid's going to pop off and it's going to erupt. And that's often when people will start looking inwardly. I don't want to respond like that. I don't want to react like that. It's a horrible way. Why do I do that? Because often you spray it out onto somebody else. So where do you begin with all of this? A really good place to start is the word awareness. So start bringing in awareness. That's where I started. And so what does awareness, where do you begin with that? Something that can be really, really helpful is to start being able to name what you're feeling. You've got to start where you're at. So if you've been on the planet for a few decades and you've been living with fear and you've just done it this way, there's going to be a bit of a backlog. So sometimes seeking some support can be very helpful, but some of this you can slowly start yourself. So it's being curious. Name what you're feeling. Start there. Do you know anybody else in your world who perhaps is going inward and looking at this? You know what? If you ask anybody what they're looking for, they're wanting abundance. They're wanting joy. They're wanting to feel fulfilled. Now, you are not going to get this from your outside world. You're not. We often think we will from, the big house or the career or the job or the relationship. You're not. You ask anybody who's got all of that, how do they feel on the inside? So that's the outer wealth. Find your inner wealth, which is passion, purpose, and power. And it's energy. It's just code for energy. And also self-worth. Valuing yourself to live aligned to what turns you on, what gets you going, and how you activate that. And you've got to start somewhere. So you start where you are at. Getting my words muddled, which is interesting. Just a bit of a sideline. I'm doing the audio on my book. I've got a book, #1 bestseller on Amazon called Inner Wealth, From Pain to Purpose, and I've been doing the audio. Now, I am dyslexic, I skim read, and I also have difficulty in pronouncing words. So, goodness me, it's been an expedition. But I don't come from it with fear. I come from it with good enough, doing my best, and gosh, it's really interesting process. Anyway, sideline, coming back to what I'm talking about today. Are you living with fear? Where do you begin? You got to begin where you're at. And so bringing in curiosity and a little bit of self-compassion, a little bit of softness, a little bit of kindness. Because, are you a parent? Would you bring in kindness and compassion and softness for one of your children? Perhaps has some fear here. Of course you would. And it's learning how to do that. So what is one action step that you can begin today to start actually having some awareness, having some self-compassion? Look, some ideas can be to start a meditation practice. Start with 5 minutes a day. Or it could be you start a journaling practice. Or it could be you start doing some gratefulness. What are you grateful for? Being able to bring in gratitude is a really great energy if you are spiraling into the fight and flight. And to be able to really sit in your chair, get connected into your body, feel your feet on the ground. What am I grateful for? That can be really, really helpful. So if you are living with fear, be curious. It's not about giving yourself a hard time, because you don't have to live with fear. We can get addicted to this way of living because this is what we know. And when we are addicted, it will feel very, very uncomfortable when you start changing, when you start doing life differently, when you start doing different behaviors. Because if you're not living from fear, what are you living from? Abundance, love, flow. And if you are used to living in fear, this will feel very, very uncomfortable. So it's a muscle, and it's learning how to do this. Look, if any of this has spoken to you, check out my Helen Harrison website. You can find me there. We can have a bit of a chat and just see if perhaps you are ready to live from abundance. Perhaps you are ready to be able to start creating your inner wealth. And I have a step-by-step process that I will take you through. But let's get on a call and let's do a little bit of an audit and just see if this speaks to you. But anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I will see you next week. Bye.